I love this quote. Actually, I'm going to drop these off because these are kind of annoying. Okay. But either way, you guys can go to the description, go to brianmclogan.com/Q&A if you have any math questions. Or you guys can go to the Discord server, which again is in the description. You guys can post questions, anything else like that. Or you can ask questions like this inside the Discord server. And not only myself, but other people will ask the exact same thing. So, ace, or I said ace, but pass your math class. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, you got to pass your math test. How do you pass a math test? I don't care if you're a struggling student or maybe you just are really strong students, right? Like a student mentioned in this and they're and then it's just starting to struggle, right? So how do you kind of overcome some things when you're struggling or when you just kind of feel like you are at the whims of like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pass. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pass this test. The content is feeling overwhelming. It's feeling maybe too fast. It's feeling too hard. I don't know if I'm capable. And I think the number one thing that you have to do, and the number one thing that I have seen with students, and the number one thing that I saw when I started becoming successful in math was all about, and it's weird. I know it's crazy and it's so simple and stupid, but guys, it starts with the mindset. It starts with your belief in your abilities. And I know it's really, really difficult when you haven't had success in math or you haven't had success in something to believe that you can be successful. But you got to be able to start seeing like having belief in yourself that you are in control of your ability. You are in control of your destiny and you are going to, be successful. Like you can do it. You can overcome. You can solve through these problems. And I think the best way to prove this to yourself is to work through smaller and smaller problems and build up to the most difficult ones. But like Abdul Lake's quote, I loved it. Like he said, like, how can I have a comeback that has like my teacher would never have seen before? Like that's confidence. He knows he's going to do, like he knows that he is going to have a comeback. He is going to improve his grade, right? Now, am I more excited to like see what he can do on his next test compared to somebody that's like, I hate math. I'm not good at math. I hate this test. I hate this teacher. I hate this class. I want to give up. I'm never going to be good at math in my whole life. I've always been bad at math, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even, not even going to try. Like neither, like what student's going to try, what student's going to try to be prepared for a test? What student's going to put in that extra effort, to finish, to finish the test, to finish the problem and to put in the work and everything else. Like you got to have confidence. We could say mindset. You got to have the confidence that you can be successful. And you know what? It stings. It sucks sometimes when you fail. It really does. It sucks sometimes when you get a test and you're like, oh man, I passed that test. Like I got an A and then boom, you get a D. And it's like, or you failed. Like I've been there. I've 100% been there. And it's like, I think one of the worst feelings that I've had as a student, and I've had that with as a student when I was a student. And also the same thing, like I remember I've had that with students myself, like where I told them like, you can do this, like you're going to do it. And they get back to the test and they failed. And maybe some students have never failed a math test before and they failed my math test. I mean, they hated me. They were crying. They're wanted to drop the class. Like, they're mad, whatever, like every emotion you could possibly be. But like the students that were successful in my class that passed the next test is they had their mindset that they could overcome that one test. Like that one test did not define them. Whatever grade they currently had in the class did not define them. Any previous struggles that they've had in math class did not define them, right? They could be successful. They could overcome their struggles. And maybe it was true. Maybe it wasn't true. You're right. I mean, what I mean by like maybe true, like maybe the next test they would be able to do that, right? Maybe they wouldn't be able to do that. But the thing is like, they got to have that belief, that confidence. That's what I'm talking about with mindset. If you're going to be walking into your next test, like moping, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm not good at math. And like, why try kind of mentality? There's not much of confidence that you're going to be successful, right? You got to have that confidence. You got to have the confidence that you can do it. And I'm like, that I've studied, I've done everything I possibly can. And maybe I'm only at a C level of understanding, but like I have prepared as best I can for this test and I am going to do my absolute best. That is having that right mindset and confidence, right? And even if it's just a D level understanding, like you got to have that confidence. You got to have that, the ability to walk in test and like, I am going to do my best and I'm going to be proud of my best that I can do. And no matter what happens, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to finish this through, right? Compare that to, the student that, just like, I hate this test, I hate this teacher, I hate this class, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It all starts with that mindset. That is going to be your, that is what is going to kind of propel you for the studying that you need to do, for the preparation for the test, as well as for the follow through of the test. Number two, obviously you got to prepare for your test, right? I was talking to a student the other day and it's like, well, seeing how do you prepare for a math test? And obviously I have a ton of math videos and I'm probably going to be coming out with many more math tests on there on this. Come on, guys. Why do you make me do this? So annoying. So yeah, he was, how do you, um, how do you prepare for your math test? And, I think when you're like, obviously I talked about like my 30-day prepare for a math test and like, reviewing your stuff. And that's why I wanted to pin down. I can't remember the student that made the comment, like, what do you mean review? Like, obviously you want to like review earlier than you possibly can. Do as many problems as you can, review your notes, like all the basic stuff, right? Spiral review is a great idea. Like I've talked about a lot of this stuff, but I think one thing that to pass in your tests, I think is extremely important is you got to challenge yourself in your tests. Like I think we can all agree that moment when we said like, oh, you, what is the famous words? Oh, like, oh, I understood what we're doing, but then the teacher like put us a question that we've never seen before, right? It's like, oh, you do the easy problems in class, then you give us the hard problems on the test. And some of that might be by design, and some of that might be, just by luck of whatever problems were, prepared for, instruction compared to tests or quizzes. But I think the important thing is like there are some questions that are designed to really assess your thinking and your understanding and are not a regurgitation of the work. And so what's important about that is like as you are preparing for your test, right? And I don't care if it's to pass it to get in, especially if you want to get an A. But if you're just looking to pass that test or but if you're just looking, to pass the test or, get above like what you need, like, yeah, you got to understand the information. Like, yeah, you got to know the basics. But I think another thing that's really, really important is, challenge yourself. Like look for those types of problems that are in the back of the book or, revolve that content that you are, that are like not expected or even like in your notes. Sometimes your teacher will, give out some like basic notes. And you might say, oh, like, all right, I understand my notes, right? But then what's on the test is like all the hard problems, right? And so what you got to be able to do is like look for maybe even problems that your teacher did that were more difficult. Look for like those homework problems that were like the most difficult ones. Like try to study like the framing, the understanding of those. And maybe try to find some different ones that are in that book or like, that are online or whatever that are related to that you can see like, all right, here is the challenging part of that. Because if your teacher has challenged you before and like, that's why you failed or that's why you got what you got wrong, like you're going to be challenged again. Right. So just don't study for a test. And this is the one thing I always try to like dial in with my students is like, just don't study with tests by going through the motions, right? Just reviewing your homework or like reviewing your notes. Like if you want to pass or get it, get the better grade that you can expect in a test, you got to be able to challenge yourself. You got to do not just problems that you've already done before that you know how to do. You got to do problems that are difficult that you don't know how to do that are challenging you, right? Now it's always helpful to make sure you have the answers to those problems, but work on it. Like work through those more difficult problems. That is how you can, I think, that is how you're going to be successful from on there. Okay. Now let's go through. Okay, yeah. So we talked about the mindset, right? You have to have the belief, you have to have that confidence. You obviously have to prepare mathematically, like, you guys already know. Review. I think spiral review is really, really big. But I think spiral review and on top of this is, yeah, that's important. But if you're just passing tests, like challenge yourself. Just don't go through the motions, right? That's not something I talk a lot about, which I think is really, really important for you guys to know. The third thing, prepare yourself. Now, this one, again, like we're not talking a lot of math here. Well, at least in the first one and the third one. But yeah, like prepare yourself mentally. Okay. And I'm not just talking about the confidence, and this is one thing that I think it's underestimated that we get into. I remember like when I was a student in high school, I remember my teacher like, oh, get a good night's rest. Blah, blah. And like, I remember for my ACT, like I went out with my friends the night before. Like I was like, oh, it's like, I don't know, you feel like you're invincible. Like when you're like younger, I guess. And you don't really feel it until, like you start getting older and you see like how how your sleep affects you and what you eat affects you and stuff like that. And, I think it really, really is important to just be, maybe if you're not as sensitive to that, like with old people, I guess we are now, like just to really follow into that advice that like it is affecting you, like um, what you eat, how you sleep, what you do the night before. It really important. And I think one of the most important things that I can do is like, that's kind of like general advice, right? We all know, get a good night's rest, eat, a good breakfast and stuff like that. Like, it got it. But here's one thing that I think is important that I don't really talk a lot about, and it's all about breathing. Okay. I think you really need to make sure that you, like, if you're like, meditation is really, really important, like the night before, like having that vision, like vision and clearing your brain, right? Because what happens so much is with students is that they, um, no, I'm sorry. Is what happens is with students is like they have that anxiety of like studying for the test, and they have the anxiety of, every, like their grade or how they're going to do and everything like that. And it like overwhelms them. They can't get the good night's sleep. Right. And then usually like they're kind of rushed and they're rushed and then they don't eat as well. So you might even have the greatest attention to get a good night's rest. You might have the greatest attention to like eat a good meal. Right. Right. Whatever may be the case. But sometimes like it's not in the cards. So I think would be really important as prepare yourself mentally. And what I would recommend doing is like, you can just look at like how to, meditate. And really just when I'm talking about like meditation, I'm not following any specific thing, but I really just think like having a look good, like long walk, right? Just maybe closing your eyes and like doing some practicing some breathing. Just something to clear your brain the night before the test. I think doing some like vision training, some mentally like vision training, preparing like how you're going to do that next day, how you're going to do for that test, how you're going to feel, how you're going to feel afterwards. Like, I think is really, really important and also really, really helpful, because I think if you can kind of like, sometimes those students are so into cramming the night before. And what I would rather students have is the night before the test, you should be all done with your homework. And all I want you to be doing is preparing mentally. And on top of this, what happens is this also goes into like the day of the test, like breathing, slow down your breathing. Take big inhale and exhales on the test. Sometimes you're taking the test, like anxiety is going to overwhelm you. You're like, oh God, this is, here we go. Like here's a really, really difficult problem. Okay. Here's a really, really difficult problem. I'm not really sure what I need to do. And here's a really difficult problem. I'm not really sure what to do. I'm feeling overwhelmed, right? Stop, like close your eyes, take big breaths, like in, out, like, and relax. Your heart rate is jumping, right? You're going to have to slow everything down. So, being able to prep yourself, I think having that like strategy the night before, as well as the strategy right before your test and like during your test to like slow your test down, because I think it's happened so many times. Like I've seen students that I'm like, they're like, Miss McLogan, I felt like so good. I was going to do so good on this test. And then, I don't know. I forgot everything right during the test. And it's like, I get it. Like, but it's like, don't get overwhelmed by that. Like slow down, focus, right? Maybe stop, maybe get like, if you could take a bathroom break or take a little quick little walk, like to resort yourself and get back at it. Okay. Because tests are stressful. Tests can be hard. Right. So want to make sure that you can make sure that you prepare mentally, not just prepare mathematically, but prepare mentally as well for your test. And that kind of comes into the mindset a little bit as well. But I think this is just more of like a healthy thing, like eating correctly, drinking the water, like, doing some meditation or self reflection like the night before. And then also the day of, like really just mentally preparing yourself. And I remember a lot of times when I was actually in college, I remember like taking tests, like I would just like, I didn't do anything that would like mentally mess me up. Right. And sometimes we talk about this, like, or when I have things going on, like for instance, like when I'm on calls and stuff like that, or like I'm on video calls, like I have to clear all of my distractions, right? I just want to mentally focus on what I am doing. And I think when you're preparing for your tests and stuff like that's something I want you to be doing is the exact same thing, right? Studying, like trying to really get rid of the distractions and just focus on your one task at hand, which is to pass that math test. All right. And then the last one is, which is another one that I've talked a lot about, but I can't say it more, like I can't stress it enough, right? And that is just to take your test smart, like to take your test wisely. And I think a couple students mentioned this, or I think I saw in their chat. What did they say? Let me hold on. I'm trying to think. Well, I think one thing is like trying to find mistakes. Unfortunately, we're not always going to be able to find mistakes. Um, we're not always going to be able to find mistakes that we do. But if you do have time, right, then go through, find your mistakes. Obviously. Oh, that was those students that don't dwell on the problems that you don't know how to do. Like, yeah, of course. Like the one thing I hate, and I've mentioned this before, like do not take the test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah, 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 blah. Right? There's no rule that says you have to do that. Unless you're doing like an online test and it tells you which problem you have to take. But like if you're taking a paper test, do the problems you know how to do first, right? That's it. Do the problems you know how to do first. Then come back to the problems and do the problems that are a little bit more difficult, right? And last of the whole test, maybe if you have 10 minutes left, maybe you have 30 minutes left, like whatever the case, then do the problems that are most difficult. Now, there's two reasons why I like to do this. One, if you've already solved like math problems for like 60, 70, let's just say 60, 75 minutes up to this point, one, you've already like mentally kind of prepped your brain. Like you've gone over, your brain has recalled all this information. And now you're coming into these more difficult problems that you probably like. The reason why they're more difficult is like usually they're involving a lot of content, right? And a lot of like recall and application you need to apply. So hopefully at one point, like you're kind of prepped, like you've kind of remembered a lot of stuff that you need to apply for those problems. And the third thing is, and the second thing is, um, if you, let's just say you don't have enough time to finish them, or maybe you are like completely mentally fatigued, it's probably much better to get like one of those more difficult problems wrong than probably, one of the more easier problems that or if like you didn't have enough time to like fill in one of those problems, like you don't want to get a problem wrong because you didn't have time to like fill it in. Now, I'm mostly talking about a multiple choice test. Like obviously if like that really difficult problem's I don't know, a free response, like 20 point, like don't skip that, right? You're going to have to do it. But yeah, it's like, I think the thing that always would bug me was like students wouldn't do like problems like 20 through 30, right? And they were like easy questions, but I didn't get to it. I'm like, well, why are you waiting till then? Like do the problems you know how to do first, right? Then wait till those weird, most difficult problems at the end. Okay. So that is, that is some basic eggs. So if you are just joining onto this live stream, let me kind of do a quick little review for you, and then I'll get to any questions you guys have inside this chat, and I'll try to catch up to some of your comments as well. So first of all, you got to have the mindset, right? You got to believe that you can pass your test. That is like extremely number one, right? There's such an importance of having that confidence and that belief walking into the test day that you have done everything you possibly do to do the best you can. Okay. And again, doing the best you can might not still be passing, but guess what? I cannot tell you how many times I've seen students that when they have that confidence, and they've done the work. I mean, doing some work, you just can't have confidence and not have anything to back it up. But when students have confidence, it's hard to get in their way. All right. And I've seen students always do way more better when they have that confidence, that ability that they can be successful and they can pass the test or the quiz or the class. The next thing you got to obviously make sure you're preparing yourself, mathematically. I think I love doing spiral review problems as practice. I love challenging problems as practice, right? We all know the thing like, oh, I know how to do it, but then I get the test and it's all the hard problems. Like you got to challenge yourself. If you're going to prepare yourself with those challenging problems. If that's what your teacher does, then prepare yourself by picking out the challenging problems and practice those. Just don't do the easy problems that you already know how to do. Obviously, reviewing notes and blah, 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 like the old basic stuff, like that's good. But um, the um, but yeah, I want to make sure that you are doing spiral review. Oh, I got a little super chat. Well, thank you so much. Awesome. I love why can't I think? Oh, I can go to your channel now with that. Why won't it pop up? I can't get your thing.